Finally, after 17 grueling weeks of having guys who don't know how to football shoved into our faces every day of the week, I get to answer the age-old question. Who the hell is going to win Super Bowl 52? Well, I'm not giving a definitive answer just yet, but I'm just saying, it could be the New England Patriots. Yada yada yada, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, yada yada yada, which Patriots jersey is the best, yada yada. You know what, you can shut the f*** up. I like the Patriots. They deserve to be ranked number 1. Yeah, they're not my favorite, but at least they're not the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did I mention the lack of parity has crippled the AFC this year worse than all of Major League Baseball? So if some of these teams look like they don't deserve to be in, you can thank the football gods for completely shitting on every other team, even the Jacksonville Jaguars. The fact that the Jags of all teams won the AFC South Division this season still seems like a huge surprise to me because Blake Bortles. Sure, they have a top 3 defense on the season, but from what I can remember, the Saxonville talk only lasted until week 12 when they got edged by the Cardinals, who, by the way, had lost Adrian Peterson to injury who knows how long ago. Not they would have made any positive impact or anything. Anyway, who's next? Oh, right. The Kansas City Chiefs. So they didn't totally pull a Vikings and actually won the AFC West after starting 5-0. Are they back in business now, or do they risk bottoming out once and for all? Well, they did win their last 4 games, and I feel their tight victory over the Broncos last Sunday is slightly deceiving since they had already locked up the number 4 seed by then. I don't know. The best thing going for them is that they actually get a home field next weekend, and that's going to mean a lot for them as they go up against the Tennessee Titans. I'm looking up the team stat page on the NFL website before I make these predictions, and I guess I only see that the Titans have a top 5 rush defense because that makes sense. I was hearing talk about how Marcus Mariota is a great asset to the Titans and how that was going to mean a lot when the Houston Texans got totally banged up and left the AFC South for the Titans to take. Except they didn't. And I still can't believe that. And yet, as weird as it sounds, I think they still deserve to lose that division because they were not better than the Jags. Oh, by the way, did you hear who crashed the postseason party this time? It's the Buffalo Bills. Yes, the Bills of all teams survived the Patriots long enough, okay, not really, to somehow sneak into the playoffs because Andy Dalton managed to score with less than a minute left. I'm not kidding when I say this, that touchdown completely threw my predictions of who I thought would make the 2 wildcard spots down the shitter. Does that mean Tyler Boyd gets a key to the city of Buffalo? No, of course not. Ugh, that was such a drag. Now things are going to get interesting, starting with a top seed that looks nothing like a top seed. The Philadelphia Eagles. I gotta admit, they were pretty scary to watch when Carson Wentz was healthy, there I said it. Yes, their defense looks pretty competent, just look how many points the Cowboys scored last Sunday. And yes, Nick Foles does have playoff experience, but I said the same thing about Irvin Santana last October. Also, did you see how many points the Eagles themselves scored? This team looks like that umbrella Mr. Krabs tried to pawn off for $10. Get it? It's full of holes. You know who's not full of holes? For lack of a better segue into the number 2 seed? The Minnesota Vikings. I've been hearing about it all year. Best season since 1998, world-class defense, no more AP, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Teddy Spreadkey Waternum, QB controversy this, QB controversy that. Aaron Rodgers walks into a bar, hosting the goddamn Super Bowl, actually making a run that would set them up to become the first team to... Oh, well, you get the rest. And then here's ESPN fapping off to Aaron Rodgers still. Never a change, guys. Next up is the Los Angeles Rams. And this is where things get interesting, because the next 3 teams all had the opportunity to get that number 3 seed, even though getting that seed in retrospect feels like even more torment from the NFL gods, since the team that does so still has to get thrashed around in the wildcard game, and even if they survive that round, they would then have to face the Purple People leaders themselves. The Rams knew this, so knowing that they could drop no further than number 4 on account of already having the NFC West locked up, they intentionally lost to the 49ers. Only one teensy little problem. The New Orleans Saints. Yeah, the Saints also lost last Sunday. Anyone remember when the Buccaneers were the next big thing in the NFL? As it turns out, literally every other team in the NFC South made the playoffs. The problem with losing is that the Saints were still fighting for the division title, and their loss left room for a hostile takeover by the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to admit here that I thought their offense had been washed up for the 2nd year in a row after losing to the Eagles, the Bears of all teams, and the Saints twice. But then they beat the Vikings and the Packers back-to-back to keep their divisional hopes alive all the way up to last Sunday. And when the Saints lost to the Bucs, they opened the door for the Panthers to punish them once and for all. The hell do you mean they didn't? Oh shit, what do you know, they lost to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons didn't even need to necessarily win to get in. The Seahawks did enough choking against a Cardinals squad that was barely clinging to its dignity. To the Falcons' credit, even with Matt Ryan's receiving core having transfigured into a turnstile in the offseason, they didn't get victimized by the Super Bowl hangover. They're back with a vengeance to shed that blowing elite at halftime label, to finally give the city of Atlanta its championship, to prove that their last Super Bowl appearance last year wasn't a fluke. That is if they survive the road ahead of them. That last statement applies to all the teams, by the way, well, except for the Patriots. That said, I shall now commence that ceremonious pagan ritual that you all came to see. Ready? Go! Thanks to the NFL graciously providing a complete schedule of the entire playoffs shortly after the conclusion of Week 17, I know I'll be covering each game in chronological order, starting with the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs in the wildcard game. I don't really believe in either team's chances of making a deep run this year, and I think it's stupid that one team has to win, which is something I'm going to be saying for several of these games. And yet, despite this one being a number 4 seed going against a number 5 seed, this is a game where I would happily bet money on my prediction, for you see, the key to this game is its location. Arrowhead Stadium, known for setting several records in the volume category. Every team in the AFC should fear the prospect of having to play a playoff game here against the Chiefs. They'd probably be the loneliest bunch on the face of the earth. Not to mention the Chiefs' offense has the potential to be explosive at any given moment. The Titans' offense doesn't. Chalk up an easy win for Kansas City. Following that contest, or utter lack thereof, we have the Atlanta Falcons going against the Los Angeles Rams. Forgive me, I'm 20, so I don't pay any attention to team names dating past 1999. Anyway, I know it doesn't look like it on the surface, but this is a game I feel could go either way. On one end, the Rams have Sean McVay, who in turn has lit up Jared Goff, and a great running game in Todd Gurley for a stellar turnaround season. Seriously, they're good. Meanwhile, the Falcons don't have the most potent offensive attack, but they do have Matt Ryan, who, by the way, managed to throw for over 4,000 yards on the season despite his receiving core being utter trash. Well, except for Julio. And they have an underrated defense. Not to mention the Falcons are a team I have to take seriously right now after what they did to the Panthers last Sunday, even with not much on the line after Seattle guaranteed them a playoff berth by losing to Arizona. I mean, come on. Can I really believe in a Rams squad that intentionally lost to the 49ers even though they knew they were going to play the following week anyway? Also, how do I know Rams fans will show up at the LA Coliseum to support their team? This is not looking like a good home field advantage for the Rams. That will end up costing them the game as the Falcons pull off the upset en route to Philadelphia. More on that in a minute. Right now, we've got a true toss-up in every sense of the word between the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Whoever saw that coming? Thank Jeebus they didn't play each other in the regular season. Which is fine because I have no real praise for any aspect of either team, except for the Jaguars' defense, I guess. Even if the Titans managed to get past Saxonville last Sunday. Sure, Buffalo might be favored to win this one on the basis of not being stuck with Blake Bortles, but I don't think Tyrod Taylor is all that consistent either. I mean, they still can't get close to a win against the Patriots, and goddamn, they almost lost to the Colts. No, I don't trust Buffalo. I don't really trust Jacksonville either. This is probably going to end up an offensive shit show that one team just had to win. In this case, that team would be the Jaguars. The Bills may now go back to hating on Cincinnati for being Cincinnati. And wouldn't you know it, the next game is a fierce divisional matchup where the Carolina Panthers take on the New Orleans Saints. For once, both these teams have good things going for them, even though I feel they lost a bit of cred after they both lost. But what can I say? They both have good running games. The Panthers have a stellar defense as well as Cam Newton, who basically is their running game. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, the Saints have Drew Brees. And they have home field. And they have the Panthers' number. Seriously, if the Panthers can't beat the Saints in the regular season, how can I trust the Panthers to beat the Saints now? The Saints aren't nearly as banged up now as they were when the Falcons edged them because Thursday Night Football. They're actually favored to make an appearance in the NFC Championship game this year, and it's going to show as they curb stomp the Panthers one last time, allowing them to make the road trip to Philadelphia. In the divisional round, the Falcons come to town to give the Philadelphia Eagles their first and probably only postseason test on the year, because from what I can tell, both of these teams have a competent defense, but that's not going to matter much, for you see, Matt Ryan can pass. Get it? Got it? Good. So once the Falcons put a merciful end to the Eagles' hopes and dreams, the Chiefs fly into the home field of the New England Patriots, and really? Are you actually going to make me elaborate my decision here? No, it doesn't matter how the Pats did against these guys in Week 1. Andy Reid does not perform well in January. Bill Belichick does. Alex Smith? Who cares how well he's done in January? Who cares if he's played a game in January? The Patriots are far and away the more complete team in this matchup. They're one of the most complete teams in the league. Anticipate a blowout victory for the Pats. Like, I know a true Patriots fan, and if I asked her to pick a winner, she would gladly put money on the Patriots. Oh, and while we're on the topic of no contest playoff games, we also have the Jaguars going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, maybe the Jags defense keeps them somewhere close to within striking distance, if only for the first half. I think Blake Bortles proves himself just a little too incompetent to compete with Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, the Steelers have Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. I can't name anyone else on the Jags roster. Does that tell you enough about how little I believe in the Jaguars? No? Well, maybe you'd like to hear about this next game. Yeah, I'm just salivating at the thought of finally getting to talk about it. Anyway, Saints and Vikings. This seems to be a popular pick regarding a potential NFC Championship matchup. Basically, the Vikings were guaranteed to host an opponent they'd already played earlier in the season, but judging by the seedings, people weren't expecting these two teams to meet this early in the playoffs. Yes, they were way too different in Week 1, and neither one looked as strong then as they do now. I mean, the Vikings were starting Sam Bradford in all their games, and the Saints had Adrian Peterson. But now the Saints have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram to test the Vikings defense, which ranks number 1 on the season, and the Vikings have Case Keenum to compete against Drew Brees. Now, I get it. Case Keenum is not Drew Brees. And yes, the quarterback is by far the most important position on a football squad. But you want to know something, Colin? The quality of the quarterback does not determine the outcome of the game. It just doesn't. Stand by your own predictions, but to think that the Vikings, perhaps the most complete team in the NFL right now, don't match up against the Saints on account of the quality of the quarterback, even though most of their roster is well rested, even though the Saints roster by contrast is banged up enough because they had to play a tough divisional opponent the previous week and barely squeaked out of it with a narrow victory, you gotta be one of the most closed-minded sports writers in the media right now. I followed you all through the season to get your insight on the weekly power rankings. Week after week, it was the same story. Case Keenum this, Case Keenum that. No sign of Pat Shurmur. No talk about Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, Anthony Barr, Teddy fucking Bridgewater. Sure, their last 3 opponents in the regular season were complete and utter shit, but do you seriously fully discredit our defense after they held those teams to a combined 17 points? The Vikings are making fucking history. And they will have already done so after beating the Saints. The AFC Championship game commences the following Sunday. To no one's surprise, it's between the Steelers and the Patriots. To no one's surprise, the game remains somewhat competitive for the better part of 3 quarters. To no one's surprise, the Steelers make a huge play late in the game to knock the wind out of the Patriots. To no one's surprise, the refs use some bullshit rule to call it back. To no one's surprise, the Patriots keep the momentum for the remainder of the game and burn the hopes and dreams of Yinzers everywhere to the ground. Also, that Pennsylvania Bowl will have to wait at least another 10 years. So then the Patriots watch on as the Falcons and Vikings take care of business in the NFC. Well, the Vikings take care of business. QB versus QB, who gives a shit? I should be able to get away with using the Week 13 matchup as a guide to my prediction in this game. It was late in the season, and the rosters then and now were roughly the same. Let me tell you the scoring summary for each team in that game. The Vikings, 2 touchdowns, no field goals. The Falcons, 3 field goals, no touchdowns. Also a missed field goal that sealed the game, by the way. Not to mention, that game was in Atlanta. Therefore, my answer is completely 100% obvious. The Vikings give the Falcons a taste of their own medicine, in reference to last year's NFC Championship, of course. Here we go. 4 more weeks of football action down the drain. We've already played the Pro Bowl. All the festivities in downtown Minneapolis are in full swing. Guys like Donald Trump and ISIS are paying us a visit. It's all come down to Super Bowl 52. The Minnesota Vikings versus the New England Patriots. Couple things to note here. First off, blah blah blah, Vikings make history. But now the Vikings are under a lot of pressure. 2 of their older brothers, the Packers and the Bears, have already beaten the Patriots to hoist Lombardi. Of course, they didn't have to go through Tom Brady. And since it's the Patriots, who have probably never worn white at home, they'll have chosen to wear their colored jerseys by virtue of beating the designated home team, which would make the Vikings look like complete idiots. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the Patriots' offensive line is ranked number 1 in the NFL. Yeah, remember Super Bowl 48? The Weed Bowl. Remember how that year's number 1 offense fared against the number 1 defense? But forget about that. The place was way too loud and way too cold, and the refs fully plan on rigging this game too, don't they? I suppose this is what I get for going full Vikings fan. The Patriots are the only team consistently able to make a fool out of any world-class defense. Tom Brady has made numerous GOAT statements throughout his career in the forms of 5 Super Bowl rings, a 16-0 regular season, playing in the AFC Championship for the last 7 years straight. Wait, the hell do you mean he's never been named the NFL MVP? No matter. The Vikings are bound to go full Vikings again anyway. It only took them 41 years, but now they can commence that patented choke job just damn near the pinnacle of all things football. Congrats, Patriots fans. What the hell is a Super Bowl victory anymore? Tom Brady is running out of fingers to count as bling, while the Vikings have cemented their legacy of failure by finally going 0 for 5 in the big game. Meanwhile, Case Keenum is due for a hefty payday, and that genius offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur is f***ing off to Chicago. What a great future for the Vikings! Please excuse me, I'm gonna go into hibernation for the next year. By the way, Joe Buck is awesome.